All right, guys, it's time to jump into episode number 3. You can already tell by what you see here on the bench that I've got one of the bodies already taped up and ready to go. And I'm getting ready to do the second body. What I'll do is change this over to time-lapse setting, make things a little more efficient. And then if there's anything that comes up throughout that process that's important, I'll go ahead and slow it down and talk about that. Before we get into it, let's talk about the tape brand and the tape sizes and everything you're going to need at this step. Earlier on in a previous episode, I mentioned that I was using the vinyl 3M tape. So give you a little close up here of that product. It is the vinyl 471 plus. You're going to need the 3/4 inch. You're going to definitely need the 1/8 inch. That's your real thin pinstripe. And then there is a 1/2 inch stripe and then a single 1/4 inch stripe. This is the single 1/2 inch stripe right here that wraps around to the back of the body here. This one right here touches there. So you don't need much of it. Same thing with the 1/4 inch that starts here and goes around. Sorry for the camera bouncing there. Do the 1/4 inch there, right there. So that is all you need of the 1/2 inch and the 1/4 inch. Okay, now that we've talked about the different tape sizes that are needed and the type of tape that we're going to use, I want to talk about sort of a tech tip that I see this happen a lot of times in the forums and the guitar building groups, where guys are posting progress photos of their build and they have their body laying there and they've got the rolls of tape just kind of thrown about on the workbench or their picnic table. Maybe it's sitting all piled up on like a terry towel. Well, the sides of these tape rolls have some adhesive still on the edge of the tape. And what that's going to do is pick up any dirt, debris, lint, pet hair, whatever, on your work surface and transfer it to the guitar body right along the leading edge of your tape stripe. So if you'll notice, like, see how you can pick that up and the card comes with it? Well, it's because it's sticky. And these rolls of tape come on these sort of vinyl coated cardboard backing boards, and I would highly recommend using that while you're striping the body, whether you're doing a 5150, Frankenstrat, or a Bumblebee, whatever the case is. Keeping this leading edge of the sides of your tape rolls clean is going to help improve the overall result. Because if you have debris around the ring of your tape roll, and as you stretch that tape, I'm just going to use this household painter's tape, for example. You can see there's some debris. I've just used this for, touch up around the house and whatnot, and I just throw this wherever, and you can see how much debris accumulates. As you pull that across the guitar body, whether it's pet hair or dirt from your work surface, it's now transferred right up underneath that leading edge. And as you go to spray the body of the guitar, any kind of contaminants on the leading edge of that tape is going to make a possible spot for paint to seep underneath, because it couldn't make a seal because there was something clinging on to the side of that tape roll. So my advice is use something like this if it comes on that to help keep the side of your tape rolls clean. If you're not sure, you could always take a piece of other masking tape before you get started. Just use the sticky side, make a little, loop it around, and just kind of go around your tape roll like that, and that will help pick up any contaminants that are on the side of the rolls of your tape. So just wanted to throw that out there just to help give a little better result when you're striping any project. That's enough tips. Let's go ahead and I'm going to switch over here to time-lapse mode, and I'm going to begin striping the second body. All right, I wanted to pause the time lapse there just to kind of point out a little technique that that gets overlooked. It may help you just to ensure that your tape lines are actually being applied straight. So when you're working at it from the top down, you're always looking at it kind of from a bird's eye view. Sometimes the tape actually it may appear straight up top, but then when you come down and kind of get this type of a view on it, you'll see that the tape might actually be wandering as it goes across the body. So just periodically spot check yourself, come down here, get eye level with the body, look at the stripe, make sure it's going in a perfectly straight line from start to finish. All right, so something I ran into a few times here is in a couple of areas around the horns, you're going to have trouble rolling the tape and laying it down smoothly right there, because it has to make a turn, and then so that you get like a fold there. You can press it down, but you can see the line is not straight. It's not perfectly like smoothly curved. There's sort of an angle right there. So one way you can kind of mask that is take off, a smaller piece of tape, and ever so slightly we're going to kind of mask it like that and cover that corner so the angle kind of disappears, and then press it down really, really good. So you might run into that in a few spots, and that's how you can overcome that. All right, I've got both bodies taped up here, and before we go out to the spray area, I'm going to talk about a little technique here that is very important when it comes to eliminating a lot of the paint bleed underneath the tape. And even though you may have pressed down all of your overlapping intersections really good, what would really help is if you took something like a guitar pick, and then if you, I'll try to get the glare over this. If you notice here what it looks like right now, you see that there's going to be a gap right up underneath that corner there. So you can take a guitar pick and just slide it right up against the edge of that. And what that'll do, I'm trying to do this under the camera here, just like that. Just take it right up along there, and you'll notice it'll press out any remaining air. And what you'll need to do is go around to all of them. Take it down like that. It's like this little 1/8 stripe here. Watch this. Just press it down, just ever so slightly. Give it a little pressure, and what that'll do is help minimize some of that paint bleed. And yes, you'll have to go around every single one of these and do that. It'll probably take you about 10 minutes, but it'll definitely be worth it. So you'll see a big difference when you're all finished. And you may want to recheck it too when you get out and get ready to paint. So that's one big tip that'll help eliminate a lot of the bleed. And the second thing I wanted to mention is the location of a stripe, a particular stripe that does wrap underneath. I've seen a lot of projects where this lower stripe here terminates into that vertical stripe, but there's a picture of Ed holding a guitar, and you can see that stripe clearly wraps underneath and touches the second stripe there. So make sure you include that. I've seen a lot of replicas that don't have that stripe that comes up. This one wanted to lay a little bit higher, but it is there. It comes up and touches right there. So all right, I'm gonna go around with the guitar pick and get these all pressed down. Let me see if I can get a better angle here. Let me zoom in. There, you see how much cleaner, crisper that line looks. But you don't want to use anything hard. This is just one of those Delrin Planet Wave picks. Just, you know, a fender pick or something like that. Just go around, crease all of your overlapping stripes, just like that. You might have assumed I was going to go straight to the black. However, for this project, I wanted to ensure all of the stripes came out as clean and sharp as possible, unlike the other relic EVH projects you've seen here on the channel. Now you'll notice I'm only spraying a very light coat of our base yellow over the top of the tape. Now this is going to ensure any gaps along the tape edges and underneath the intersecting tape lines are filled and sealed off with yellow before moving on to the black color. To demonstrate the effectiveness of this method, I sprayed the first sample board with just the base yellow, then taped, then straight to black. And you'll easily notice how the black color bled under the intersecting tape lines here on this sample board. Basically, anywhere that tape overlapped each other, there was a gap underneath, a little pocket, and that black lacquer easily found its way underneath that tape. On the second sample board, I used this method of spraying the yellow base, then taped, then sprayed one more light coat of yellow before spraying the final black coats. The difference is night and day. The intersecting stripes came out much cleaner. So on a project like the Bee, I highly recommend spraying another coat of yellow after you tape the stripes to get the best result and to minimize any touch-ups that will be necessary later. All right, now we're going to begin the black, and same thing with the yellow, where we're just going to mist on a real light coat at first. We're not trying to bury this thing. We're just trying to get a very thin, light coat on this. And even overall, this thing does not need to be, you know, absolutely buried in the black, because we're going to put that protective clear coat over the top. So all we're looking for is just as minimal paint on this as possible while still providing full color coverage. There, that's all you need for the first coat, just a nice dust coat. Let that dry completely. All right, so I've let the first coat gas off and dry here for about a half an hour, so we're gonna do another light mist coat. Slowly start building up that color. All right, so coat number 2 is dry, very dry to the touch. I've been letting about 30 minutes lapse between each coat. Try to give enough time for that for each coat to kind of gas off here a little bit. So don't forget your PPE. Gonna mask up. Gonna spray coat number 3. You can still see a little bit of yellow right through that area there and around kind of the corners here. But after coat 3, it might be done. But we may go ahead and need to put a 4th coat on it later. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and make the determination that those 3 coats of black lacquer are all that's going to be required. Actually, I lifted up my garage door here so the wind's pushing all the plastic back. But just looking over this thing, I've got nice uniform coverage. It's not too thick. Everything is covered completely. I've gone around the horns, checked everything out. So I don't want to continue to build a thick layer of black paint if I don't need to. Again, this is going to go under a nice heavy clear coat. So anyway, I think we're going to go ahead and call it done after 3 coats. And just to point out too, as I've been out here spraying through the course of the day, the relative humidity has actually dropped down to 54%. I'm going to go ahead and let these dry off for a little bit longer and take them down to the workbench and start peeling some tape, the best part. All right, now comes the most fun part. I'm going to go ahead and take the tape off. It's only been drying for an hour, but this lacquer is completely dry to the touch. It's not tacky whatsoever. So I've already done a little test strip here just to make sure there won't be any paint pulling with it. One quick note here is I would prefer to remove any tape laying on top as you're pulling. If you come to an intersection where it is underneath another layer, I normally stop. I don't like to just start pulling. Want to be a little bit more methodical than that. So I'm going to switch this over to time lapse and film the rest that way. Wow, there it is. Results are fantastic. All of the intersecting lines are nice and crisp. But just look at that. One tiny little spot right there. But everything else nice and sharp corners. Didn't have any of the yellow lifting off. Great paint coverage. Yeah, couldn't be happier. That blue vinyl, I think, is the way to go for these. All right, well, you know, it's inevitable if you're in a rush. You're gonna miss something. And I'll give you a second here to see if you can spot it, but I didn't realize this until I'd already unmasked everything and was sitting here looking at both of them, kind of admiring the work. And lo and behold, yeah, I'm missing a stripe. So not the end of the world, not a big deal. I thought I'd throw this in there as well, just to show you what can happen and how you can fix it. So what we're going to do is actually take the original tape, the original size tape, and we're going to lay that down as and use that as a guide. Looks like it came right about there. Actually, we're gonna lay it like that. Now that's my outline, and then I'm gonna take a smaller piece. So notice I didn't press it down real hard because I'm gonna peel that back off. So I guess I'll take, I'm going to take my 1/4 inch, the smaller size here. Then I'm going to come down here beside it, beside the one edge. And you can see this much better when you're standing right over the top of it. I'm going to lay this straight down the line. Try not to pull it. You don't want it to stretch. Okay. Now we'll do the other side. Just go right across the side there. Like that. Now I'm going to just peel off that 3/4 tape like so. Make sure this is down good, because now we need to make a good seal. Okay, and then I'm going to basically mask everything off around it. And you'll see here real quickly what I'm going to do. I'll take this outside, I'll put it on the workbench. We're going to get that like there. I'm just doing a quick kind of a mock-up here. Let me overlap that stripe just a bit, but leaving the vinyl tape exposed, because that vinyl tape is your sharp line. Okay, so you're basically just going to come in like so and do like a reverse mask. It can just be some scrap paper. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Take your second piece of tape here. Now I'll tweak it and fine tune it and make sure that everything is completely covered. You got to get a good seal though between this painter's tape and your blue vinyl below, so it needs to wrap perfectly. I'll do that outside. We're going to basically just spray that yellow right there, call it done. All right, so here it is hanging out in the paint jig, and as you can see, I've got everything completely masked off, just pressing all the tape down to make sure I'm not going to get any undesired kind of overspray, because that's all we're targeting here. So we're just going to touch this up, starting just like we did before, just a light mist coat, and then slowly building up. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry off. All right, it's been a few minutes. Everything's nice and dry to the touch. We'll just keep building that up. Okay, it's coat number 2, starting to fill in a little bit. You can still see a little bit of the black underneath there. That's gonna be the challenge, is covering that up completely, and I'm starting to run out of the original can here, or the second can. So hopefully we got enough to stretch this one out. All right, coat number 3. Went ahead and added just a little bit more tape. I didn't want any overspray to curl up underneath that paper, find its way onto the body. It's actually starting to build up pretty nice. Still see the black a little bit there. All right, number 3 done. All right, I went ahead and shot the 4th coat off camera, and I think I'm really starting to like the result here. So I think I'm going to hit one more coat. I can see this this painter's tape here is starting to lift a little bit, so I'm going to address that real quick, because I still don't want anything bleeding up underneath that, and then hit it with like probably the 5th and final coat. All right, so I peeled off the stencil. Everything's looking good. We're gonna go ahead and get the blue vinyl off. And there you go. I think that's an acceptable result there. Looks really good. All right, so when I was taking the tape off, I mentioned I had a few little spots where the tape ran under, and these are really in the areas where maybe the tape had folded. So you get a couple of little areas like this. Let me try to focus in here and zoom. Like that. So it's not real significant, but there's a couple of different ways you can clean them up, and I'm going to show you probably one of the most effective ways. So first thing you're going to need to do is get you something very fine, like a 1500 wet or dry sandpaper. We're going to wet sand, and we're going to cut off just a very small piece of that, and we're going to lightly scuff this area. But first we're going to tape that off so the sandpaper does not kind of wander in areas you don't want it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take a piece of the blue vinyl. I'm going to lay it right up against the edge of the stripe like that. And that's just going to give us a little bit of a kind of a protective edge there. And I've got just the smallest of 1500 sandpaper there. Just the very smallest piece. A little cup of water here. And we're not soaking this. I'm just going to get it a little bit wet here. And then without putting any pressure on this, you just sort of want to run that edge, and you'll start to see the unwanted color coming off. And it's up to you how much of that you want off, how much you want to live with. Kind of blot it. See, it's already starting to come off there. It's just really easy to remove. Again, I'm just sort of lightly rubbing that, no real pressure, and using the absolute straight edge along that tape there. Like I said, kind of using the tape as a guide. And work it until you think it's good for you. Almost there. Now I can see I'm starting to go a little too far, so I'm going to stop right there, starting to scuff the yellow. So that's about as far as you really want to go. Now if you're happy with that, just stop. We did make a slight improvement there. And then I'll show you method number 2 here. Let me set up for that. Alright, so now if you think the situation warrants getting a touch-up, this is the method I've used on my 5150s, the 78 black and white Frankie. Basically, you want to isolate that section. Right in here is where I'm shooting for. I got that one little run, kind of overspray there, and a little bit where I burnish through with the 1500. I've taken the blue tape and I've isolated both sides of that stripe. I've come back in with just some regular cheap blue painter's tape. The entire body is covered in paper. Okay, so like I said, we're just going to mist right over that edge there. That's it. I'm going to let that dry, remove the tape. Alright, so it's been about 10-15 minutes, plenty of time to allow this lacquer to flash over. So we're going to go ahead and peel off our little surgical area. This painter's tape has a kind of a lower tack rate, so it's not got a real strong pull on it, which is good for these type of situations. Now you may be wondering about this line right here. Yes, there was a hard tape line across there. I intended to just sort of lightly spray anyway, so there's only a slight buildup right across there. And let me get this. Okay. Let me take this off the tripod. All right, so there you go, touched up, ready to go. Can't see any of the area we sanded or any of that little bleed through. Now with this little edge right here from the masking tape, we can simply take your finger, knock it off there, and that will be totally sufficient. You could go back over with that same 1500 if you wanted to, just to blend it, but that's going to be totally fine and repaired. All right, so here's a situation where this rounded X-Acto blade will come in really handy. Do you see that little bit of black paint there that bled under the tape? So what you want to do is take the rounded edge of that blade backwards and just kind of pull it towards you. There, just like that. It's all cleaned up and looks a lot better. So that's another good method to use these rounded X-Acto blades. If you're really careful, you can do some pretty impressive touch-ups with that. All right, now that all the touch-ups are complete, I'm very happy with where both of these are at. So I'm ready to commit and move forward with the clear coating process. Now, some of you may remember at the beginning of the series, I talked about doing a Spray Max 2K urethane clear on one of these, and the other one I was still kind of on the fence about. Well, I was talking to my good buddy Hef. Many of you guys probably already know him. He's been in the EVH guitar forums, you know, forever, and friends with probably many of you that are watching this. So Jeremy and I were talking about, you know, how the original one definitely had a slightly orange tint to this yellow base coat, and a lot of people pick up on that and they comment on that. Well, this Ford Chrome Yellow is the closest that you can get off the shelf, so that's what everybody goes with. That's why I went with it. But I found this video of Carl Sandoval talking about the different stages of, you know, painting the original EVHB, and he definitely talks about using nitrocellulose lacquer. Well, you know, you probably already guessed, well, that's where some of that amber hue comes from, and what turns this yellow slightly more orange, a little bit leaning towards the orange side. So I went ahead and purchased a can of this StewMac aged clear gloss. It was relatively inexpensive. I think it was like a 1 liter size bottle, pre-mixed down, pre-thinned for spray. And I did a test sample on a whiteboard, of course. I wanted to see how much amber was in it before, you know, moving to the body. So this is a board of just the white base coat. It's just a white lacquer, and then this one here on the left has the StewMac aged gloss. Has about 9 coats actually, and you can see the amber is very mild in it, but I think it's going to be just right for what we're doing, and it will continue to yellow over time, just like you know, lacquer back in the day. So I took my original sample board that you've seen from the beginning. This side has the 2K clear. This middle strip here I just taped off to leave the raw Duplicolor intact, so I can compare, you know, what type of color changes happen with the clear coat. And then this right side here has about 6 coats of that StewMac aged clear gloss. So I think it makes just a very subtle difference, if any, but I think, again, over time it's going to continue to yellow, and I think that's going to be the key to replicating that. So again, I'm going to do one in the Spray Max, the 2K gloss, and the other one is going to be in the StewMac aged clear gloss. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be coming up here this fall, probably approaching wintertime. As you know, anytime you spray, you know, heavy coats of clear, whether it's nitro or 2K, you need to have adequate curing time before buffing. So, you know, some guys like to wait a couple weeks, some will wait a few months, you know, before cutting it back and buffing and polishing. So we're definitely, you know, I'm aiming for a completion of before Christmas if everything goes well. That's the plan anyway. So I appreciate you guys sticking with the video series this long. I didn't anticipate it being this long, but hey, it is what it is. We're getting some progress made here, And if you have any questions in the meantime, if you're doing this yourself and you run into any problems, you want to ask some questions, throw some comments down below. You guys know I'm pretty active in answering those as best as I can. So in the meantime, appreciate you guys sticking around, watching this long video, and we'll see you again real soon. Take care.